Ich sitze hier backstage beim Haldern Pop Festival mit Father John Misty. Should I say Father John Misty or Josh? Is that okay?
Let's go with Josh.
Hi, Josh.
Worked my whole life, so I think it'll do.
I remember a couple of years ago that I got the last Josh record that you did, and then when I heard the new name, I thought like, oh, it's just a new character. But when I listened to the songs, I kind of felt like, no, it can't be a character. It's too intimate or too personal. Am I right? Or
yeah, which is kind of I get sort of like a cheap thrill out of that. It's like I enjoy the conflict between this like obviously goofy fake name and kind of the explicit honesty of the material.
Is that kind of a hilarious name for you too? So
yeah, I mean it's just it looks like a Christian puppet show or something, but I was really, at the time when I came up with it, I was really thinking a lot about identity, it's because my music had changed like so drastically all of a sudden, and what I was writing, and I think the way in which I related to myself and the way in which I related to my voice creatively, and I was really interested. I was really kind of struck by this disparity in that I had made all this music as Jay Tillman under my real name, and that it really didn't resemble me at all. It was like an alter ego. Jay Tillman was like an alter ego, I mean, I wasn't singing about myself. I was singing about, the blood of the lamb and how red the rose, and, just this really impressionistic kind of poetic nonsense, and I think a lot of that was because I wanted to be taken seriously, as like a 20-year-old, that was like the most important thing in the world to me, was to, be viewed as a serious artist, quote unquote. And that just fell by the wayside, at one point, where I just wanted to communicate in my own voice, and that meant including my sense of humor and including all the messy reality of my real life, and the mundane and the mundane aspects of my real life, and so that was just that just became all I was interested in. And ironically, for me, it just felt more like me to give myself this stupid name than to go by my real name. It's just like more true to my instincts. Because my instincts are kind of to confuse people when I can.
well, I've seen a few interviews with you, read some, and to be honest, before I did this, I was kind of, okay, how's this going to be? Will it be like, will we go in a different area, different worlds? Because for me, especially, the new record is so personal and so intimate, and I like it so much that I think it's more human than everything else, you've done before. And I think it's so cool that nowadays, where people are, fascinated of everything but music sometimes, especially on a festival, like taking pictures, getting entertained by whatever, that this kind of music is so big now and that it means so much to people.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Is that a question?
Well, it's a statement, and maybe you feel the same.
Expound on it. Yeah. I mean, I do think that, I think that there's, I walk a very fine line of being an entertainer and being, an artist, and the two oftentimes work or the conventional wisdom is that they oftentimes work at cross purposes, that the two are kind of mutually exclusive, and I'm not totally sure if they are or aren't yet. I mean, it's still something that I'm, to be honest, sometimes I get off stage after putting on a very entertaining show, and I'm just thinking, like, what the fuck am I doing out there? Am I making too much of a joke out of myself, where I'm doing a disservice to the work? But I like walking that tightrope. It's in some way it's kind of thrilling to me. But I think that that's sort of why I think that in some part is why it is popular, because it is kind of like watching someone do this. In some ways, I think it's like how is someone getting away with this? You know, like performing music that obviously means so much to him, but doing it in a way that is so kind of like flippant and strange. But I just have strange instincts, you know. I like the grotesque, you know, and I think that a lot of what I do is sort of kind of grotesque, you know. And I think that when you, with me, like the more layers you peel back, like there is actually at the core this little kid that wants to be a performer and wants to be loved by everyone, and that's kind of the sad, perverse truth. But I have to acknowledge that part of me, you know, as much as like my adult mind would like to, you know, wishes it didn't exist.
I must say, this one TV appearance where you put the applause into the, you know what I mean, into the song, and I think people were kind of confused. For me, that was kind of, you know, quiet as the new loud of all, because, you know, it was such a surreal situation and something, well, in general, nobody does. Yeah. When did this come into being that you thought, okay, I'm going to put this into a song, I'm going to put this into a live gig and stuff?
I was, it was just an instinct that I had. I was sitting, Emma and I were in a tree, and I was hallucinating, which I know is how all my stories start. But it was just kind of it's just like an instinct, you know? Because I mean that's what I like about humor, is that you can take a really big amount of information and condense it down to a really simple gesture, or, you know, like, and I think you know, with that tune, it's like I wanted to provide this layer to the song, this layer of self-awareness, because I think that because the song itself is about the way this ironic layer of self-awareness actually, like, it can be really soul-killing, you know, and it can prevent you from committing to things that are necessary for your growth as a human being with a soul that you can either choose to nourish or not. And I mean, I know that sounds wrong. I don't believe in like a soul, you know, I don't believe that there's like a ghost inside of us that goes to heaven or hell or whatever, but I believe in the soul in terms of a tool in human evolution. You know, like why do people like die for abstract properties like justice or freedom or whatever else? It's because we have this component to ourselves that has nothing to do with our biological imperative, you know, to like survive or procreate or whatever. It's like there's this added dimension to us that's willing to live and die for conceptual ideas that we've developed, you know, since we crawled out of the darkness, you know, since we stopped being animals, you know. I don't know where that all came from, but so anyway, the laugh track is like basically taking everything I just said. That's the way it's like, how do I say that without saying all that? Oh, you put a laugh track in it, and people get it, you know. I mean, people do, and it's a better way of conveying all that information than what I just did, which was to go on a big semi-incoherent rant, you know, about human despair, you know.
I think you know, there are a lot of bands that I like for their deep meaning in the songs and stuff, but I think it's very difficult to entertain people with deep songs. I don't find many. Are there some that you would say, besides you know, or might have inspired you, or that you at least like to watch, like to experience?
Well, I mean, I think Leonard Cohen is very entertaining, you know, and he's also hysterically funny. You know, I mean, a lot of his songs are really funny. If you know how to look for it, or if you know how to hear it, you know, beyond the superficial aspect of his, you know, the quiet nature of his music or whatever. But I mean, yeah, I mean, there are, like, you know, John Lennon. Yeah, I mean, there's, I mean, I think that it's not so common anymore, but I think there was a time period where people wanted more out of music than just pure entertainment, you know? A lot of the music that is popular now is the byproduct of, like, basically the success of an industry who decided in the 80s that they needed to be able, instead of finding artists that were popular, it would be a lot more economically viable if they could just create them and make sure that there was a constant flow. And you know, shitty music is a lot, you know, it's like fast food, you know, where it needs an unbelievable amount of marketing to go behind it to convince people that it's good. And you have to be hit with these messages that it's good and that you want it over and over and over and over again. But at some point, people do start believing that it's good, you know? So that's just kind of the success of, like, this kind of hypnotic marketing that happens in the US. But I do think that when people are confronted with something that has great meaning, that they're still open to that. It's just a lot more rare.
Well, I think at a certain point I decided for myself that I don't need fast food, and probably it's the same with, you know, shitty music. I mean, you get a lot in the radio, but I must say, although I'm a radio journalist, a music journalist, I don't listen to it anymore.
Right.
You know, I mean, I have opportunities. There's enough else.
I'm kind of on the wrong side of the, you know, in America, it's like everyone is supposed to like everything, and you're supposed to be like, oh, Taylor Swift is so great.
For example, yeah.
Yeah, and this is, you know, but I get it, but it's so great, you know. And I just can't bring myself to, you know, I just think that cultures have high watermarks, you know, and then they have long periods of time where people are just making, you know, where the culture just makes horrible shit. And but for me, you know, I do think that we're maybe coming to an end. We're coming to an undulation on the wave where it will be okay to say, like, no, this music is, you know, this is garbage, you know, like, I don't, this, like, cultural pluralism, you know, where everything where you have to like everything, you know. It's like, I don't like everything, and how do you discern the things that do have value for you if you can't say, like, this or that thing is just not good enough, you know? Or there's something scary about, you know, grown-ass people listening to music made for 14-year-olds, you know? I mean, it's the same way. It's like, you know, you shouldn't, when you're in your 30s, you shouldn't be eating food that you liked when you were 14, you know? I mean, you have to evolve, you know? You have to move. You have to, that's part of wisdom, I think, is being able to see things for what they are instead of what they represent, you know? And I think that there's a very tragic lack of that, at least in American culture, where everyone's just so infantilized, you know, and afraid of transformation.
Well, you know, I have a lot of young listeners, but well, sometimes people say you cannot play all these things to young people, and I always say, oh, well, I can. You know, I put other stuff, let's say lower music, or not superficial, but, you know, rather chart rock guitar music or whatever, but then lead them to other places. And for example, this is kind of your music, which I like to put in and say, hey, this is, you know, there's something else on the market.
Yeah, I mean, and this is not to say that my music is all that deep or
It's special. I think it is special.
well, thanks. But but it also, I mean, it does contain really vulgar, at times very superficial sentiments. Because I just want to, I'm into artists, and think of myself as an artist that includes the mess in his music. I mean, I think that to be creative is to like open the door to everything. Like when you engage the creative impulse, you open the door of madness, and you don't know what's going to come in, but you have to, I mean, like Henry Miller, for example, is, that's why he's one of my favorites, because he's not afraid of the mess. He's not trying to curate this ideal version of reality, and I don't claim that my music is anything that anyone should necessarily live by.
Well, we can give a hint, and I say thank you for coming over. I'm looking forward to your performance. It's my first time that I can see your show, so yeah. Hope you're gonna enjoy it.
Yeah, I will. Thanks. Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was great.